Hello, I'm Robert Scoble, and you're watching WorkFast TV, which is about how the internet is changing work. This show is supported through the generous support of SAP. SAP provides software that helps large and small businesses manage their business, lower their costs, and bring more services to their business relationship partners. Thank you to SAP for supporting social media and this show. My guest today is Sumit Agarwal, product manager on Google's mobile team. He's here to show us all the useful stuff we can do with our mobile phones. So, Sumit, thank you very much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Robert.
I really am looking forward to this because the world that we live in is changing due to these things all the time. And I realized that when my son and I were driving, I go and pick him up and I said, what do we want to eat for dinner tonight? We were coming home from Petaluma. He's like, I don't know, and he just typed in a Google, restaurant, San Francisco, and got a choice, and then started looking at the reviews, and then mapped his way out.
How old is he?
14.
Okay, good.
And made reservations and everything.
Excellent.
It's like, you could use some services like OpenTable to even make a reservation.
That's right.
It's pretty crazy what you can do without even making a phone call.
It is amazing.
But let's talk. Most people around the world don't have these cool iPhones or the new Google phone that was just announced this week. Most people have what's called a one-chip phone, right?
Feature phone.
It has a small, tiny screen, probably not on the web, or if it is on the web, it's using WAP and really crude. It's not like an iPhone where you can see a full web experience. And does voice and SMS. When I go around the world, I see teenagers, they're SMSing to each other crazy, and making calls. So what can we do with just SMS? Because my friends show me how to use things like how to look up something on Google with SMS, but give me a sense of what you're doing with SMS and how you're seeing the world.
Sure, absolutely. So SMS is a great service. It allows you to access a wide variety of the features that are in Google Search. Why don't we try a few demos? The long and the short of it, while I pull this up, is that SMS allows you to get a lot of the most common structured forms of information out of Google. Okay. So a lot of people want to know, for example, what the weather might be where they are. So why don't you give me a city, preferably one with a somewhat short name.
Well, Half Moon Bay.
All right, so I'll type in weather, Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
And I'll show this in 1 second. Moon Bay, CA. We'll go send, and there we go. It'll probably take a second for that to come back. But as you send that query to Google, it's looking through all the different types of information that you might be looking for, whether it's restaurants or sports or local information or weather. Yep. We'll try a couple more examples in a second. But this has now come back with the weather in Half Moon Bay. Wow. So it's partly clear. It gives you the temperature and so forth. And
that works on any phone that has SMS on.
That works on any phone that has SMS.
And it works worldwide too, right? So if you're in India or China or London, it always works.
Let's do London. To your point, it's more popular where people have more feature phones or one-chip phones. Yeah. But it's also great anywhere that you don't have the best network connectivity, where the network is a little bit spotty. SMS is a very reliable form of communication. It's a little bit more limited.
In fact, during Katrina, one of my friends was in New Orleans, Ernie the attorney, who's a blogger, and he could only talk to the outside world through SMS. He had no Wi-Fi, no broadband, no voice, no web, just SMS. So SMS was getting out, but nothing else was. So.
No, that's absolutely amazing. And so the local time in London is 6:03 p.m. And so you can get a lot of these different kinds of information by sending in these simple queries. And it's very intuitive and natural. There's nothing to really remember. If you've got the need for a short snippet of information, the most likely way that you would phrase that query is probably the right way to ask for that information. If you want to know the flight time for United Flight 5417, you do United Flight 5417. Wow. And it'll tell you this flight is running 15 minutes delayed. And you can go dig for more information in flight stats and see when it's arriving, see what terminal it's coming to, and so on.
So give me some more sense of what you can do with SMS. You can do flight times, you can do weather,
you can do sports, you can do simple math.
Like sports being who won the Red Sox game?
49ers. You just type in the name of a team or a game that's happened and it'll give you the most up-to-date information about what just took place.
Keep going, because this is cool.
So the list is long. We should pull up that whole list. But there are lots of different things. Anything that Google can do that's semi-structured in nature, whether it's a math problem, whether it's a translate, I can translate from one word to another word in another language, all through SMS.
So if I'm in France, in Paris, like I'll be in December, I can put, and I see something on the menu and I don't understand it, just put that word into
Well, you'll
SMS?
need to tell it to translate, otherwise it'll just do a search on that, which might not work all that well in SMS. But if you tell it translate, that has a slightly more structured query format. So translate, word, French, English, I think is the format. We'd have to look up what exactly it is.
Wow.
But there's an easy way to do that, and then you're able to get that information.
So a lot of kids have cell phones now. They can use it for asking, like, what's the population of Kansas?
Depending. So
like
you
that?
can ask it certain kinds of questions. Population in Kansas is one that's actually likely to work. I'll try that while we're talking. But yeah, there are a very, very large number of things, and we're adding new ones as often as we can when we discover what is popular.
Can you ask what's John McCain's voting record through SMS, or is that
Unfortunately
too
not. It is because the response that would be meaningful to you is far too long.
Yeah.
And so
and SMS only has 140 characters,
exactly,
right? Which is why
right.
Twitter is only 140 characters.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So when you've got a very bite-sized information need, that's when SMS is an effective, or that's when it's the best mechanism.
And you can do stock quotes for business people.
You can do stock quotes, yeah, we'll do
what
that in a
other
second.
kinds of things would business people be doing? You get off the plane, you know, you want to find out the news of the day, or can you get like top headlines that way, or?
You know, I think that the shorter the information need that you have, things like a stock quote, things like a flight time, things like weather, things like time, are the ones that are the most effective. We find that that's very, very powerful. You can also get taxi, 94043, and you'll get a listing of 3 results for taxi. So you're standing on a corner and you need to call, you're not being able to flag down a cab in New York City, and you can call one directly and have it come pick you up.
Wow. What's the one for that? Taxi London?
Yeah, taxi. Well, it depends. It's easier if you do a zip code or SW143, wherever you may be. But yeah, you can do any of those kinds of queries. Local queries work really well.
Very cool. So let's move to voice. So we have text. What other? Now we're not just going to talk about Google today, right? Is there any other services that you've seen out there that are great for texting back and forth? You know, like is Cha-Cha a good one? That
absolutely, those are a lot more. Those are a lot of fun. I mean, those really allow you to go beyond the bite size or the more structured data types because you've got real people behind the services. There's one in London. The name escapes me. I think it's ASQ, but it's very, very cheeky, and it's very, very good. If you said, "Tell me about Robert Scoble," they would make up some cute little short tagline and get that back to you. And it actually costs quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, it's a £1, I think, per query, but it's really fun. You've got people putting time and energy into combining the information aspect of the service with an entertainment component.
Very cool. Well, let's keep talking.
Let's
now we have text, and we obviously every cell phone has voice, right?
It does.
So what can we do there? I know Google has a 411 service. I've never used that. So tell me what that does.
So Google 411 does what traditional 411 services do. It helps you find typically local information. So let's actually go ahead and give it a try. Let me set up a little bit of a scenario and tell you, this is one of my favorite applications because it meets a need that I have and that many people I've spoken to have. You're driving down 101 just like I was today, and I know that this studio is in the eastern, southern edge of the city, kind of near the ballpark, but I don't actually know exactly where it is. There's the 101, there's the 280, I don't know which direction to go in. So while I'm driving, one hand on the wheel, eyes on the road, I can double tap on the center button in my phone. That's easy, I didn't need to look. I've got Google 411 as a favorite. I can tap on that with one hand without looking, pretty easy. I'm going to put this on speaker and we'll go ahead and do this in real time.
Okay.
We'll give it a second while it rings the phone number.
Yeah,
let me turn the volume up.
Really bad, by the way.
Hopefully we'll get reception. I have enough bars, I think.
Recorded. Google 411.
Yeah.
What city and state?
San Francisco, California.
San Francisco, California. What business name or category?
Revision 3 Studio.
Revision 3 Corporation on 3rd Street. I'll connect you, or say details, or go back.
Details.
Details. You can also get the details by saying text message.
Text message.
Revision 3 Corporation, 2415 3rd Street, San Francisco. Phone number 415
Text message.
252 7379.
Hopefully it'll send me a text message eventually.
Here it is again.
Text message.
Revision 3 sending text
There we
message.
go. Sometimes it doesn't like to listen as well.
Now that you've selected all the states,
So all of this has been happening while I was driving down the road. Let's end the call. I can do that pretty easily.
I didn't even know that you could do that.
And it got a relatively obscure query like Revision 3 Studio, which is hard and long. And so here I've got text messages from Google. Let me punch into my text messages and go back, and we'll have that text message from Google. There's Revision 3 Corporation. Now there's a link to Revision 3, and here's what's really, really neat. Clicking on this link automatically pulls up Google Maps for mobile, which is pre-installed on the iPhone. Let's get rid of this. The audience can see that Revision 3 has come up. I can hit that with one hand, and this is really where the value comes in. I can say directions to here. It automatically says from where current location. It's got GPS, cell ID, and Wi-Fi. It knows where I am. I'm speeding down the highway. Yeah. I hit route, and I've got a map.
To do this, you need an iPhone, or you need a phone that the Google Maps app can be loaded on. Like my Nokia phones have that, but the cheaper single chip phones won't have the map.
Well, this is combining the broadly accessible Google 411, which is obviously working on all the different kinds of phones, with a slightly higher end service, which is Google Maps for mobile. Yeah. The array of devices on which that's available is actually quite large. It goes all the way down, if you will, the food chain to many single chip or feature phone devices. Wow. The experience is most powerful on a higher end device like a BlackBerry or a higher end Nokia phone or an iPhone. But I'll just show you really quickly. You've got your real-time location, blinking dot with the little radar signal, and you're able to map yourself to where you're going. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite examples.
Wow. What else can you do with voice? Give me some other examples. Certainly with 411. What other kinds of things can we do with 411?
There's a great service called vLingo that I'm not going to demo that right now because it's a little bit hard to get just perfect, but it allows me to say things like email Robert, message, I'm running late, subject, see you in 25 minutes. And it literally pulls Robert Scoble out of my address book where your name is listed. Wow. It pulls up my email application. It goes to the subject field and says, see you in 25 minutes. It goes to the body and says, I'm running late. And then it just publishes that for you. You can edit it if you like, and you can hit send. So as you get the combination of modes, whether it's touch, whether it's voice, whether it's calling a number, whether it's doing the voice recognition right there on the device, it really opens up the possibilities of the phone.
Yeah. Are you using things like Jot with voice? Because if you're on the freeway and you have a brain fart, you know, you want to write something down, you can't stop and write something down or type into your phone. In fact, it's illegal now to. Starting in January in California, it's going to be illegal to text on the phone. So, you know, it's nice to click one button, you know, and say, hey, I got to pick up milk on the way home or something like that. And it sends that, well, you know what it does, right?
Absolutely.
So it sends that audio to India. Somebody translates types it in and sends you back the audio recording and the text. And you can put that text on Twitter or put it in your email or put it on your blog even.
That's right.
Are there other services like that that you use?
Sure. I mean, so I use a variety, whether it's Spinvox for voicemail or Grand Central to do some of the transcription, whether it's Jot, some of the local things here, vLingo does that. There are tons of iPhone applications that allow you to do the same thing. But fundamentally, what's exciting is that you can hit one button and get into an experience that's very easy to use, and then have that information go wherever you want. I want more than just the ability to recognize it and have either a WAV file or even that text sitting in yet another unique application on my BlackBerry. I want to say, remember to buy X, Y, and Z from the grocery store. Add that to my task manager in Google Calendar or Outlook or Exchange or what have you. Yeah. I mean, so that integration, which is happening day by day, those barriers are getting knocked down, I think is where the value to users is going to skyrocket. Because all of a sudden, I can use the same application, the same single button interface to do anything from getting a map, to asking for some information from the web, to reminding myself to do something, to putting down that idea that I'm going to go pitch to somebody the next day. Yeah. And I can have that idea then flow in the back end or have that information come back to me, get stored, get put in a task manager, add my meeting with you to my calendar, and just completely forget about it. It's off that mental radar, and I can go act on it when it comes up in the future.
Interesting. You mentioned Grand Central. What is that, and why do I need to use that?
Grand Central is a company that Google bought a couple of years ago. I use it because I have a huge number of devices. I probably have a far more than the average person, 6 or 7 different devices and phone numbers.
I have 3, and I think that's ridiculous.
Well, 7 is definitely ridiculous. Grand Central gives you a single number underneath which you can manage all the other different phone numbers you have. So I can take my primary phone number, put that on business cards or on a website, and I can then ring the home number when I want the home number to be rung, or the work number, or cell phone A, or cell phone B, or the one that I'm taking with me internationally. Or if I just want to use a particular phone at a particular time, I can have the call's routed to any or all of those phone numbers. I can have your phone number come through in this morning because I know that we're taping together, and I can have someone else's phone number go straight to voicemail.
Yeah. You mentioned international. That'll get us off on a tangent for a second. What do you do when you travel international? First of all, a lot of people don't realize that they're paying a lot more for everything when you go international. And international isn't just going to Europe or Japan, right? If you go to Vancouver, which is just 10 miles from the U.S. border, you're paying roaming rates. I got hit with a $400 bill one time because I was doing data, in Vancouver. I was thinking, oh, it's probably the same price. It's so close.
Could have been on Wi-Fi.
It's like, oh my. So a lot of people don't realize that and get hit with a massive bill.
I got an $1,100 bill, and an executive at Google got a $14,000 bill once.
Whoa. So when you travel, how do you get a different SIM? What do you do there to make sure that you still have the connectivity you need overseas?
Well, having learned the hard way, I do three primary things. The first thing is I use a lot less of my services. That's just the first and foremost, is consume less. The second is that I have signed up for international data roaming plans.
Yeah.
Both for voice and for the data packages.
Yeah. And when you do that, I did it for AT&T. They warn you're going to be paying, I forget how many dollars per megabyte, right? And they're like, be warned, you're signing up to really get a nice bill if you're going to use this every day the way I use my iPhone here in the States.
That's right. And the third thing is I'm just much more aggressive about finding Wi-Fi networks and paying attention to what network I'm on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a very difficult challenge for people that want to consume data and regular voice services when you travel internationally. It's unfortunate.
Actually, you just reminded me. There's a phone service, I forget. It's from Pat Phelan that lets you use the Wi-Fi overseas. TruePhone. TruePhone lets you use the Wi-Fi and save a lot of money. If you find a Wi-Fi, you can use the Wi-Fi to call out instead of using the phone service.
Absolutely.
And it saves you a lot of money overseas. It uses, and there's also Skype phones that I'm starting to see come out for Wi-Fi, so you can actually use your handset for Wi-Fi. So what else does Grand Central do? It just manages phone numbers, or does it do some of the other stuff?
Oh, it's doing voicemail transcription.
Okay.
So you're able to save all your voicemails for life. You're able to just go in and see everything that a spouse or a child, people are really enjoying saving early voicemails from their children as they start to learn how to use phones and they call in and they leave really cute messages. People are able to save those forever. Which isn't something that you used to be able to do easily before. You can also do differential routing, which is really fun. You can establish priorities. I can say that when my wife is going to call, I want that call to always come through, even if I'm in a meeting, even if I'm busy, no matter what the parameters are. I want that phone to buzz or ring so that I can see that she's called, so that I can step out and call her back if it's very important to do so. Similarly, I can take people that I don't really want to hear from, and I can make their calls always go to voicemail.
Interesting.
So
does it hook up to the calendar so it knows you're in a meeting?
It doesn't do that yet. That
would be really cool because I keep my Google Calendar all up to date. Like right now, this meeting is in my Google Calendar. Right. It'd be really cool to have a service that knows, hey, he's in a meeting, so don't ring his phone.
Absolutely.
That way I can leave my phone on.
I think the biggest theme that we're seeing from a service provider's point of view is back-end integration. All the walls between the services fall down, and you see exactly what you just described, the ability to take a voice service and intelligence from a voice point of view and have that take into account information that's sitting in a web service, like the information that's in your calendar.
Yeah. Let's talk about search. Your Google.
Absolutely.
Some searches just don't work well on an iPhone or a smaller screen because some searches give you back a page of results and the right one is 5 levels down, and then you have to go and visit that page and search around and stuff like that. Do you see any advancements coming in search for mobile phones?
Absolutely. Although if you're looking on the 5th page, we're doing a bad job of giving you a result, so I hope that you're not going that far.
Yeah.
But let me show you a search that is actually very complex, so complex that most people don't even do this kind of search on the web. And we've brought together UI and new technology innovations that make it easy to do even on mobile. Someone told me while I was coming up here that I should read the article you wrote on the Wash Post. Because you were quoted in some article, wrote some article, and I wanted to know what was in that article. This person just recommended it to me. So I'm going to go to the Google mobile application, which is a combination of all of our applications with search front and foremost. And I'm going to type in just the first 3 or 4 letters of Washington Post, which is just Wash. And by the time I'm done typing in W-A-S-H, I see Wash Post right here. So I'm just going to click on that, and it goes up to the top. Now, there's another thing that's happening here right in the screen, which is that Washington Post is published as a URL suggests, because we know that that's very popular. So I'm going to have to hold my finger down with my thumb, which is what I'm used to using. It double clicks on that. And as you can see, Washington Post is now highlighted. This is going to do what's called a restricted search just on Washington Post. So something that would have taken 10, 12, 14 characters and required a syntax that people don't normally know, like cite colon. All that's gone away, and I can still search this. I just then type in Scoble, and I hit search. The very first result is the very relevant result that we want to see, which is you being quoted on Scoble, TC50. There's something that you said about video surfing not sucking.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to read that article on my way up here. I was able to search for it quickly, easily, effectively. Didn't have to go to the 5th page, thankfully. So what we're doing is we're making it easier to be more precise up front without having to type 50 characters so that you get those results earlier and sooner. And this application lets you do lots of things. You can pivot on that search. It automatically figures out what's most relevant. Scobalizer is obviously a relevant query, so we pulled that up even while I was doing these other things. So once I've read that article, I can hit back, I can just type in Scobalizer, and I can search for references to Scobalizer.
Interesting. I've seen a company coming out later this year that's still in stealth mode, which I'm probably going to leak right now, called Siri, which lets you talk to the search engine. It's only for a certain kind of query, like movie times in San Francisco, but they really have a neat way to talk to web services and aggregate just the answer you need, without giving you a list of. It's very similar to what you showed, but different. Well, so it'll be interesting to see all you guys argue it out on the iPhone and see which search technology really adds the most benefit there.
Well, I think your point is right. And again, as you bring these different pieces together, whether it's ours or someone else's, whether it's the stuff in the Goog 411 type of paradigm of movies and showtimes coming together with an application like this one, where you can suddenly utter long queries or specific queries about what you want, the experience changes dramatically. What we're seeing internally is that people have a huge amount of pent-up demand for information, connectivity that are easy to use and easy to access. And as we, as an industry, bring these together, their behavior skyrockets in terms of using these services.
Oh yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because I know your boss Vic told me that when the iPhone came out, that they saw huge shifts in how people were using these devices.
Absolutely.
Give me a sense of what.
Well, I'll give you. You talked earlier in the show about one-chip phones or feature phones.
Yeah.
The average user on those lower-end feature phones versus a higher-end iPhone or even a BlackBerry will use 50x more. Will do 50x more data queries or Google queries.
Wow.
So just a huge, huge amount. You go from one every year or one every month to 3, 4 a week, 5 or 6, or multiple queries a day.
Yeah.
Just an absolutely huge change in people's behavior.
Yeah. You were showing me an app before that does translation.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to show you that application.
We're going to have a lot of fun. And by the way, we're going to stay after the show and do even more, because we're going to run through all your iPhone apps. How many iPhone apps do you have loaded, by the way, on yours?
Oh, lots. Probably 24 right now. And that's because I have to curate them because it gets too cluttered. So I go through and delete the ones that I don't use.
Yeah.
So let's pull up the standard web browser, and we're just going to go to google.com. I'll pull up a fresh, clean page so we can show people exactly how we get into this. So you don't have to remember very much here, other than just going to Google. I apologize for being slow in typing.
And does it do Chinese? I'm going to China in November, so.
Well, I don't know. We'll find out.
All right.
So Robert's referring to the Translate web service that we have under the Google suite of applications here that you get when you go to google.com. So I just clicked on More.
Yeah.
And the viewers can see that there's a translate icon that I've just clicked on.
Yep.
And I'm going to turn this around for just 1 second. There are a few that I've already entered, but we'll go to Chinese in a second and see how well that works. I don't really know very many Mandarin words. I don't know if you do. Well, it might be hard to demo if we don't know any words. Let's try Spanish, which I'm a little more familiar with.
Okay.
I've been practicing this, but if you're in Spain and you see a sign, particularly on the road while you're driving, and it says something like peligroso, and you don't know what that means, you can come to this service. You can type in peligroso, which is exactly what I was doing earlier this morning. Translate. And you can find out that peligroso means dangerous. You can find out that a la derecha means to the right. You can find out that despacio means slowly.
Yeah.
And so this is all available just as one of the tabs that's over on plain old Google. You just type in google.com, you'll see a series of tabs across the top. One of them is More. You click on More, and you get services like Translate.
Now, and I didn't need to load an app for this. I just went to Google.
You didn't have to do, yep, that's right. You went to google.com, 2 clicks, More, and then the Translate app. Right. And there are lots of other things that are under this Translate app, under the More tab, depending on what you want, whether it's Google Talk, so you can chat with people, Blogger, Google for One's there as a link. Picasa and Photos are there.
Yeah. Well, we should talk all about camera phones, but that's a little bit off the topic of the business audience. What other kinds of things are you using? Calendaring, for instance. The calendar in Google is really wicked because there's not a lot of UI to it.
That's right.
You click add an event, and it's like, well, how do I put the date in there, or how do I put the time? And you just type it. You just type.
That's right. That's right.
Meeting with Rocky Thursday, 3 p.m. Friday, or or Thursday, 3 p.m. In San Francisco or whatever, and it adds it to the calendar. How does that do that?
Well,
it's almost like magic.
A minimalist non-UI almost. It's the non-UI UI. And the idea is that although it's sometimes a little bit confusing to not have any instruction as to which boxes to put things in, as soon as you try it the first time and get used to it, you suddenly say, this is the right way for me to do this forevermore. It doesn't matter whether you remembered the time or the person or the location or the day first. As long as you include all the information that's pertinent to you, we'll do the best job that we can of creating an entry that captures that information. You can go back later and add more information if it was incomplete. We don't really sort of force you to put in all the information right up front. You might just want to say, meeting with Rocky tomorrow. Yeah. That's just enough to sort of put that little flag in your memory, put that on your calendar, and you'll see it tomorrow and take some action based on that. If that's how you want to use the product, that's fine with us. Yeah. So that's kind of the core thinking behind that, is it allows people to use the product more flexibly. Yeah. Here's a scenario that I actually had. You get to a restaurant and it's full. You can't get in for some reason, or it's closed. I even went to a sushi place one day and it was closed. It's like, I didn't know it was closed on Mondays. And then you're stuck with a client or something like that. You need to find another place. Sure. What are some tips for using maps for business people? Obviously it does, like restaurants, San Francisco, but a lot of people don't even know that the phone can do that now, It's a great question. Let's go through some of the no pun intended, bread and butter apps, bread and butter use cases. These are the ones that we're seeing the greatest volume of. We only have about 2 minutes. So. Okay. Yep. Google Maps for mobile is available on iPhone as well as lots of other phones for download from google.com/GMM. GMM stands for? Google Maps Mobile. Okay. GMM. And you can just search, and I found it by just searching on Google Maps for mobile. Oh yeah, you can get to all of these different things in a variety of different ways. We'll show you one of the most common queries, which is just restaurants, SFCA. You can use things like abbreviations for common cities like San Francisco, which is even easier. And at that point, you get recommendations for things like Boulevard or Millennium Restaurant. These are actually high-end restaurants. I wonder how so many expensive restaurants. Jardiniere Restaurant, maybe it's because of the area that we're in. You can do Sushi 94043. You can do Best Bar in San Francisco, Best Italian Restaurant in Los Altos. You can really search in whatever way seems natural to you. And how worldwide is this? I know I've had my iPhone in Paris and London and Geneva, and it worked pretty well there, but does it work in Bangalore, India, or does it work in Shanghai, China? We have pretty good coverage. It depends on what country you're in terms of whether we specifically have maps versus satellite data versus local information. Yeah, in Israel it wasn't so great. Right. So we have pretty good footprint coverage in probably 25 major countries, give or take, but then it gets a little bit spotty after that. Okay. We haven't talked about the Google phone yet. We haven't. Spend 1 minute. What is the Google phone? Why is it different? And what's it going to add to this conversation that we've had for the last 25 minutes? T-Mobile's Android-based phone, which is called the G1, has a lot of Google applications on it. It uses fundamentally Android, which is an open source operating system, from top to bottom. So that's what operates the phone and enables all of the applications to run on it. What does this mean for users? It means two basic things. One, the group at Google that built this, have focused really, really well on building software that works beautifully together. And two, they've enabled developers to develop great applications for that. So there are great Google applications. I can tell you about my favorite one, which is the music one. But the really exciting thing is that anyone in the world can build applications freely and openly and deliver those to you on the Android platform. And what does that mean? Because most end users probably don't understand why developers pick one platform or the next. But this is a little difficult to develop for that iPhone, and dealing with Apple is a little difficult. Dealing with Google,
Is it going to be more easier? Tell me a little bit about
The philosophy behind the application marketplace for Android.
Actually, we got 10 seconds. So
is just that anybody can publish anything into that store.
Very cool.
So there's no
we'll
one to
talk
deal
more
with.
about that actually right after the show on kite.tv, because we're going to do a little interactive show. So join us for next week's show, where Adobe's Director of Marketing and Product Management, Eric Larson, will join us, and that'll be next week, and we're going to talk a lot about what Adobe's doing. Hang out with us for our live chat immediately following the show on kite.tv/Scobalizers, KYTE.tv. Thanks for watching. Now get back to work. So that was